Matt Bernier for RacingPicks.com, taking a look at three selections for Saturday, September the 12th. One from Laurel Park, two from Woodbine on Queen's Plate Saturday. Let's start off at Laurel, though, with race number 8. This is 6 furlongs on the main track. It's an allowance group. By no means are people going to mistaken them for stakes caliber runners, but you do have some talent in here. I'm inclined to go with the number 5, Abuelo Paps. Abuelo Paps is 3-1 on the morning line. In his most recent start, he finished a half length behind a common opponent he'll face again on Saturday afternoon, that being Nautical Nature. But I feel like the circumstances in which Abuelo Paps ran third were more impressive than those of Nautical Nature running second. In that, early on in the race, Abuelo Paps pinched between, bumped around, shuffled all the way toward the back of the pack, all out for the better part of a half mile. Going 5.5 furlongs, not really a recipe for success. Now we get back to 6 furlongs, and this is a horse 2 starts back, was close to a pretty fast pace, all things considered. So I feel like Abuelo Paps is the kind of horse that can be a lot closer to the pace with a cleaner break. Don't hold that most recent race against him. I think it was better than maybe the page would suggest. 3-1, I get it. No bargain. But I think he is one of the more likely winners of this race. Give me the number 5, Abuelo Paps at 3-1, and the 8th at Laurel on Saturday. Now, let's go north of the border to Woodbine. You've got two big races, two stakes races that we'll be discussing. Race number 10 is the big one. It's the Canadian Kentucky Derby. 1.25 miles on the Tapeta. It is the $1 million Queen's Plate. And depending on what kind of speed figures you use, what kind of pace figures you use for analysis, some would suggest there's going to be a fast pace signed on. I'm not entirely convinced of that. I narrowed this field down to 4 horses, 2 from one race, 2 from another race coming into this spot. I really thought long and hard about the 2, Mirror View. I think she's got a big chance in here, but I'm just not entirely convinced that the tactical disadvantage that she is likely to face is enough to overcome. I thought the 14 Tecumseh's War was interesting enough to make my play in here, and at 12-1 on the morning line, you look at this horse, one that certainly needs to improve from a speed figure standpoint, but there isn't a ton of confirmed early speed signed on. This is a horse who has shown the ability to be close to a fast pace in the past. Now we stretch out from 9 furlongs to 10. Showed a big gallop out in that most recent run, going 1 1/8. I thought in the grand scheme of things worked out a good trip. Set the pocket there against older horses most recently, but was really loaded for bear, turning for home, had nowhere to go, eventually angled down to the rail, kicked on through, looked like it was going to be the winning move, and you had a horse come from well out of it to go and run him down. I think it's a move that you can move forward off of. The field he defeated, I get it, not the best, but I do still think that these horses deserve a little bit of extra credit when taking on elders and then dropping back into 3-year-old restricted company. The 1.25 miles, I think, will be to this one's advantage, and if Emma Jane Wilson can get this one aggressively ridden into the race early on, I think Tecumseh's War could potentially spring the upset. I'm going to go with the 14, Tecumseh's War, to win this year's Queen's Plate at 12-1. Really did consider the number 2 considerably in here. That's Meriview. Unfortunately, I was unsure what kind of trip we would work out. Coming from farther out of it, I felt like Tecumseh's War would be the one to get the jump. So 14-2 for me in the 10th at Woodbine. And then the play of the day. This is going to be one of those that I'm sure folks who typically hear me speak, I talk about, look, don't just settle for favorites. Because in the grand scheme of things, you got to pick a lot of winning favorites in order to make out in the grand scheme of things. That's why I try to look for prices. Granted, you're not going to win as often, but the idea is when you do win, you're making up for the losses and then some, which some people still can't grasp. This is going to be one of those rare instances, though, where I go the other way. And I look at a horse in here. This is race number 12, 6.5 furlongs. It's the Ruling Angel. It's a $100,000 stakes race. I recognize Artie's Princess coming back from Saratoga after trying the turf for the first time in her career. Makes plenty of sense. The run on the Tapeta 2 starts back, going 5 furlongs. Visually checked all the boxes. Won by open lengths. To win a race at 5 furlongs by 4 lengths, that's saying something. There's clearly ability there. The connections are there. Wesley Ward, Justin Stein. I think you potentially have a superstar in this field. In the number 1 Boardroom for Josie Carroll and Ellen J. Foxwoods. Boardroom is nearly a $500,000 million purchase from the OBS April 2019 sale. This is a 3-year-old daughter of Commissioner, and you see on the bottom, dam sire is Rahi. You would think longer is going to be better. What we've seen so far, though, in 2 lifetime starts has been nothing short of spectacular from this filly. The career debut, not the cleanest of starts, toward the rear of the pack, basically felt the stick about 3/8 of a mile out, but was out in the wide clear and rolled home. Good enough, but you never know what you really have until you take on winners for the first time. They did so in that most recent start. They also stretched out in distance from 5.5 to 6.5 furlongs. And this filly, albeit green, she swapped back to her left lead for the final 16th of a mile. She could not have been more impressive visually. And I feel like this is going to be the kind of horse that if she does what I think she's capable of on Saturday, and depending on what the speed figure comes back, it's all about the clock, but if it comes back in good fashion, I think the connections have to think about trying her on dirt to find out what they have, because either that or turf, one of the two. You got to find out what you could possibly do going forward on a broader scale, because I think the talent is potentially exceptional here. Boardroom is 2-1 on the morning line. She is the morning line favorite. I think there's a scenario where her and Artie's Princess end up relatively close, whether it is 2-1, whether it is 2.5-1. I think they're probably both going to be in that sort of ballpark. Again, by no means are we dealing with brilliant prices, but I've just been quite taken by both of the first 2 starts. Visually, the numbers have come back reasonably fast. I think there's every reason to believe that the number 1 Boardroom, there is bigger and better, and this is nothing more than the beginning of her, hopefully, outstanding career. She's 2-1 in the morning line. She's going to be the play of the day. I get it. It's a little bit of a zig from a zag. I'm typically looking for the bigger prices. If you find the short price that you think is the goods, you go with them. And I'm going to in this spot. Race number 12 up at Woodbine on Saturday. The $100,000 Ruling Angel. I'm going to go with the number 1 Boardroom as my play of the day. For videos like this, and they're up every Saturday, for written analysis throughout the week from myself, from Andrew Champagne, you will get written pieces from Peter Thomas Fornatal, among others. Make sure you head on over to RacingPicks.com. All the content over there is free. All you need to do, enter your email, create an account. You are good to go. No subscriptions, no nothing. It's all free. RacingPicks.com.